So once again, it's honor and privilege to introduce the Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office, Director Iancu, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about the role of patents in innovation. Director?
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. And for the record, I was here in the back of the room, but it's always good to have two introductions. So great to see everybody. So good to be here. Just coming from the CES show in Vegas, which was an amazing experience, which we can talk about later. But the main thing that I discovered, as I was telling Bob, is the real interesting convergence of technology. It's not just a tech show anymore, from what I could gather. It's become, for example, a car show. All the auto companies are introducing their next models, and it's all converging within one big area. But in any event, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I want to first thank all of you for being here and welcoming me, and in particular TAMEST for the invitation, and Bob Metcalfe for asking me to come about a year ago or so. Obviously, needless to say, in this crowd, Bob is a brilliant and tenacious inventor. And like most inventors, he was able to realize his success by working incredibly hard, persevering. Obviously, he succeeded in a few things, including to get his invention adopted as a standard. That's pretty good. We can talk about standard essential patents sometime later. Indeed, as you know, Bob co-invented the Ethernet and then co-founded 3Com. But most importantly, for my purposes, Bob was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2007. He is perfectly representative, I think, of the innovative spirit in this country and in Texas in particular, and the TAMEST vision, actually, that I've learned about, which is to foster innovation and world-class research right here in Texas. By the way, your efforts here in Texas have been paying off. I just checked the statistics. In the past 8 years, patent filings from Texas have gone up 37%. So keep doing it and keep paying the filing fees. I first met Bob in March of 2018 when right here in Texas, in Austin, at the South by Southwest conference, we had the honor of unveiling the U.S. Patent Office's newly designed patent cover. You might think that's not a big deal, it's just the cover, but the fact was that that was the first new cover in more than 30 years, and only the second in over a century. We created a new design in anticipation of patent number 10 million, which was a historic milestone for the United States. And we knew that that was going to happen soon, and it did happen on June 19th, 2019 of last year. That event was, and still is, a time to reflect on the amazing changes brought about by American innovation. Since the first patent was issued in July 1790, it was signed by President Washington, and it was for potash, an ingredient used in fertilizer. And obviously, that was a couple of hundred years ago. From potash to the light bulb and the telephone, the automobile and the airplane, the microprocessor, Ethernet, and the iPhone, and so much more. All of it was done over the span of these couple of hundred years, and all of it under the penumbra of the American patent system. Throughout our nation's history and backed by our patent system, American ingenuity and American inventors have been at the forefront of every major scientific and technological revolution. Let me give you a couple of examples. First, Dr. Marv Carruthers, whose lab-to-market inventions led to remarkable job creation and progress for our nation. Like many inventors, Carruthers was just a kid when the excitement of science first captured his imagination. He remembers being in 3rd grade when his parents gave him, as he put it, a real chemistry set with real chemicals that could be used for all kinds of fun stuff. He eventually found himself in a biochemistry doctoral program where he and his colleagues began the cumbersome and highly specialized work of synthesizing DNA, a process that at that time had very little interest from other leading biologists and biochemists. Indeed, Carruthers recalls people at conferences telling him that he should do something more productive, something more interesting with his career. Nonetheless, he persisted in his efforts in DNA synthesis through postdoctoral work and then as a professor. When he and his team focused on transforming DNA synthesis from a highly specialized methodology into a widely used research, diagnostic, and forensic tools, their efforts were wildly successful. One day in 1980, UCLA scientist Winston Salser contacted Carruthers and invited him to join him and 3 others in forming a new, what they called back then, a biotech company. At the time, Carruthers told me, there were only 4 or 5 such startups in the United States. Carruthers agreed to join the other 4, and soon the group had assembled the foundation to a startup company in Thousand Oaks, California. They called it Applied Molecular Genetics. Today, that company is known as Amgen, as you all know, and it is the largest independent biotechnology firm in the world, as well as the employer of more than 14,000 people across the world. Its market cap is about $141 billion, with revenues of over $23 billion today. And for his contributions to science and actually the world, Dr. Carruthers was also inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2018. What a true lab-to-market success story. Amgen's visionary founders succeeded in bringing breakthrough therapeutics to the market at a time when both venture capital financing and biotechnology were new to the world. And because Carruthers' discoveries had the protection of patents behind them, companies and venture capitalists were willing to put money behind his ideas at a very, very critical point in time. Without the protection of patents, Carruthers told me, he said, quote, "I don't think we would have had a real serious biotechnology business, because you have to have patents to protect your technology in order to attract investors, to lay down millions of dollars to start a company. They want to know what you're bringing to the table that's worth their investments." And then he added, patents were absolutely critical to the development of the entire biotech industry. This is indeed true in my experience with virtually all technologies. Without our patent system, I firmly believe that American technology would not be where it is today. Think about it. Just a couple of 100 years ago, we would have traveled here by horse and buggy, although my experience on Southwest today was not much better. But in any event, just a couple of 100 years ago, horse and buggy, like in antiquity, we would have been meeting here by candlelight. And the only medicine available just a couple of 100 years ago for anesthesia was still just a shot of whiskey. Even though civilizations have been around for thousands of years around the globe, ancient Hebrews, Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, ancient Chinese, Mayans, Aztecs, the state of the human condition just 200 years ago was essentially the same as in antiquity. But look where we are now. Air flight and television, electricity, telephone, medicine, surgery equipment, cancer treatments, instant communications around the globe, and so much more. The pace of human development in the modern era far exceeds all development in all of the millennia of human existence combined. This started, as you all know, with the Industrial Revolution at the end of the 18th century. The steam engine first, and then it took off from there. But why did it take off at that time in particular? There were other technological advances in the past. There were other smart people in the past. There were other advanced societies in the past. What was different this time to cause this rapid and uninterrupted growth? Obviously, various factors combined, no question. But as it turns out, I happen to believe that a key factor has been the advent of the modern IP system. For as President Lincoln said, the patent system added the fuel of interest to the fire of genius. First, IP is the ultimate expression of creativity and talent. Patents, trademarks, and copyrights encourage this creativity because they incentivize people to share their ideas. In return, those people receive the support and protection of a strong IP system. But second, IP promotes competition and forces technical advances. If the first inventor is successful, others want to partake of that new market or the new technology. But because that first particular application is patented for a period of time, competitors are forced to invent something different, often something better. And then the next competitor needs to develop something else yet again. And so a pro-competitive cycle develops. Intellectual property protection, in my view, creates perpetual innovation and at accelerating rates. And so the modern IP system, which was born in our Constitution, democratized invention and promoted technological competition for the first time in history. Anyone could invent in our new system. You did not have to be friends with the crown. You did not have to be rich. You did not even have to have factories. So many did invent in America, and the results have been stunning. So then after that, a second industrial revolution took place, where inventors like Bell, Edison, and Ford laid the foundation for automation and communications. And then revolutions in computing and digital technology took hold over the last several decades, with paradigm-shattering inventions like the global internet. Today, we stand on the cusp of what some call the fourth industrial revolution. Whatever the name, the new wave of disruptive technologies is clearly identifiable. Artificial intelligence, which, by the way, seemed to be at every single booth at CES that I visited this week. So AI, autonomous vehicles, 5G communications, biotechnology, personalized medicine, and so much more make up what it seems to be a new revolution in technology. However fast the pace of development has been to date, I firmly believe that we have seen nothing yet. The growth rate in these new technologies around the globe is exponential. All of this incredible progress has been done within the context of the modern IP system. And IP protection is as important in these new areas as it's ever been. Indeed, humanity does not know progress at this scale without an intellectual property system. Economists and scholars have documented the remarkable contributions from patents and other forms of IP to invention and economic growth. For example, our own chief economist at the USPTO issued a report on US IP industries, and some of the aggregate findings include that the IP-intensive industries directly and indirectly support over 45 million jobs in the United States, nearly 1/3 of all US employment. The share of total US GDP attributable to IP-intensive industries is about 40% and growing. Importantly, workers in IP-intensive industries earned an average wage that is almost 50% higher than wages in non-IP-intensive industries in the private sector. And the paper from a former USPTO Edison scholar found that approval of a startup's first patent application increases its employment growth over the next 5 years by a remarkable 36 percentage points. The bottom line is clear. A reliable, predictable, and high-quality patent system gives, in the words of Thomas Jefferson, a spring to invention beyond any conception. But despite all that, frankly, I think we must do more to make sure that even more Americans participate in the innovation ecosystem. as TAMEST works to do here in Texas. As you all work to enhance innovation here in Texas, the entire nation needs to work to increase and broaden the American innovation ecosphere. In today's highly competitive global economy, it is increasingly important to ensure that all Americans who are willing to work hard, persevere, and take risks have the opportunity to innovate, start new companies, succeed in established companies, and ultimately achieve the American dream. In other words, we need all hands on deck, which is why the USPTO, for our part, target education and outreach to engage an increasingly broader spectrum of Americans in innovation and entrepreneurship. We're also working to identify appropriate role models for young people to excite them about potential futures in science, engineering, and technology. Why is this so important? Take, for example, women inventors. Women constitute about half of the population in the United States and about half of the American workforce at large. And yet, their participation in STEM jobs and the IP system lags far behind their male counterparts. In the United States, less than 25% of the STEM workforce comprises women, so about half the rate of the overall employment. And the participation of women as inventors, as named on US patents, is even lower. Indeed, the overall US women inventor rate is about 13%. 13%. In Texas, by the way, women are only about 10% of inventors, 37th in the nation. But if you compare 13%, the national average, to about 25%, the participation in the STEM workforce, this is about half the rate yet again. In other words, even among women who have the educational degrees are already in those STEM jobs, they appear on US patents at half the rate of their male counterparts. The numbers are similarly low or lower for minorities, from folks from economically challenged areas, and from areas that do not have thriving innovation hubs. In other words, innovation in the United States is highly concentrated demographically, economically, and geographically. This must change. Among other things, in the long run, the United States cannot compete effectively with one hand tied behind our backs. But there is good news in all of this. A recent Harvard study found that increasing innovation rates among women, minorities, and those from low-income communities can up to quadruple the rate of US innovation. So I say, let's go do that. Easier said than done. But still, I believe it is doable. Industry, academia, government, and nonprofits need to work together. TAMEST is an excellent example of the type of work that needs to be done on both local and national scales. So the USPTO is in the process of launching a National Council on Innovation Expansion, who will be charged with the creation of a national plan to expand the innovation ecosphere demographically, geographically, and economically, as I've mentioned. We are beginning to form this council now, and will look to work with leaders in industry, academia, government, and nonprofits. And we may, in fact, call on some of you for help. We are looking for leaders at the highest levels in their organizations, such as C-suite executives and academics. And by the way, at the very minimum, this must start with the recognition that as a nation, we must at least recognize that inventors are the engine of America's growth and development. And when we share their stories and celebrate their work, we'll inspire the next generation of inventors and give children reasons to aspire to become like them, inventors like them. And in doing so, we'll expose them to mentors and role models who are relevant to them. Role models like Professor Alice Chun. Professor Chun was teaching architecture and material technology at Columbia University in 2010 when an earthquake devastated Haiti To help those affected, she transformed her studio into an innovation lab and worked with her students to develop an inflatable solar-powered light. Over 1.6 billion people today, by the way, live without electricity around the world. It's remarkable. 1.6 billion people in 2020 without electricity. And when it becomes dark, they must rely on kerosene lamps, which emit noxious fumes and cause countless deadly fires. So to help reduce pollution and enable children around the world to safely read at night, Professor Chun and her students designed the Solar Puff, a compact foldable light made of a flexible waterproof material with a solar panel on top. And because of its unique origami-based design, the cube-shaped light is self-inflatable and it even floats. To date, over 300,000 solar puffs have provided light to people around the world, including Haiti, Nepal, and Nigeria. And for her work, Professor Chun's company, Solite Design, won the USPTO's Patents for Humanity Award in 2018. She believes that design provides dignity, which is especially important when providing aid to impoverished communities. Professor Chun said, "It's been difficult being a woman and a minority. Having a patent has made it easier for me to get funding and get the respect of investors. Inventions not only fulfill essential needs, but can also provide hope." When Professor Chun personally handed solar puff lights to children in Dominica, she named the kids light warriors and commanded them that they should fight with the light in their minds and the light in their hearts, and to never give up. Never give up. That is the character of the American inventor. And this grit, this perseverance, is what it takes to keep our country at the leading edge of global innovation. And that is the role model that we need to showcase to the next generation. American history is filled with remarkable stories of inventors like Alice Chun, Bob Metcalfe, Marv Carruthers, inventors and entrepreneurs who work hard, take risks, persevere, and ultimately overcome tremendous odds to succeed. This is, in fact, I believe, the story of America. It is the story of Texas, and it is ultimately the American dream. Nothing happens, and no progress is possible without bold inventors and innovators. And the gold standard IP system like ours, the best in the world, to back them up. And I believe that no dream is too big, and in fact, the American dream remains firmly within reach if we unleash the power of innovation and give our nation's inventors the protections and incentives they need to succeed. Thanks again for having me here, and happy to stick around and answer some questions if time permits. Thank you.
Could I ask one? So I wanted to see if you could comment on how big you assess the threat is from China. China do reverse engineer things. I've known it through my whole career. But I'm not sure they're the only ones. I mean, as you said, as you incrementally improve patent after patent, in a way you may be doing that. So anyway, I'll leave it to you now to comment.
Yeah. Look, it's a serious problem. The fact of the matter is, to put it simply, and as you read in the popular media as well, and you hear various folks from Washington say, it is a fact, in my words, they take our stuff. They need to stop taking our stuff. And we see it in various manifestations, multiple different ways, forced technology transfers, for example, and the like. They're also very focused. They have a plan. It is not a secret. They've publicized it. And they're a centralized economy, so they can dictate where their efforts as a nation should be invested in. Obviously, we don't have that ability, and we shouldn't. Our industry is independent, and it should be, and in fact, I believe it's the root cause of our success. However, we must recognize this competition. So we need to think about new ways of increasing our own ability to compete. Not only are they centralized, not only are they focused, but also they have 1.4 billion people. So we need, like I said in my remarks, we need a higher percentage of our own population to participate in the innovation ecosystem. We need to think about incentives and even more incentives, such a robust IP system and other incentives to increase innovation in the United States. So we must recognize the competition, and we must increase our own ability to compete. In the meantime and in parallel, they must stop taking our stuff, and we must work to try to reduce, as the administration is doing now, their ability to infringe American technology. I'll just leave you with one more comment. Of all the counterfeit goods in international trade, the OECD estimated that 85% come from or through China. It's a big problem.
Yeah, when you mentioned the kind of issues related to women, minorities, and then patents coming from economically challenged areas, it made me think of kind of the challenge of filing a patent application, and that's the cost of filing a patent application, right? And it's not just the cost of filing fees, it's the cost of maintaining patents over time, but the primary cost is the complexity of having to hire a patent attorney to work your way through the paperwork. Is USPTO considering that and trying to figure out a way to make it less challenging economically just to get into this patent ownership?
Yeah, look, I recognize it fully. It is an issue. I actually don't think it's the filing fee itself that's too burdensome. Obviously, it's not free, but compared to other offices in the world, our fees are quite reasonable. The system is complex, and we are working to demystify the system and trying to simplify the system. We also have, at our website, you can go check it out at uspto.gov, we have ways to help individuals file pro se without lawyers. We have a dedicated desk to guide folks through that. We have a pro bono program that is trying to reach out to these communities to help them out. Industry needs to help out in this regard. The patent bar needs to help out in this regard. So we do talk about this quite a bit.
Wouldn't it be great if the PTO had a facility somewhere in Texas?
Yes, if only we did. Thank you, Bob. We do have a regional office right here in Dallas, and our regional director, Hope Shimabuka, where is she? She just left. Okay. She was sitting right there. But yes, we have a great office here, actually, and it's good for folks who want to just physically stop in and try to get some help and guidance. Anything else? Thank you.